Okay. Aham bhavan na chanyastvam tvamevaham vichakshvabho na nau pashyanti kavayas chidram jatu managapi. My dear friend, I, the super soul, and you, the individual souls, are not different in quality, for we are both spiritual. In fact, my dear friend, you are qualitatively not different from me in your constitutional position. Just try to consider this subject. Those who are actually advanced scholars, who are in knowledge, do not find any qualitative difference between you and me. So this is Achintya Bheda Bhed, qualitatively one, quantitatively different. Both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities are qualitatively one. There is no factual difference between the two. The Mayavadi philosophers are again and again defeated by the illusory energy because they think that there is no separation between the super soul and the individual soul, or that there is no super soul. They are also misled in thinking that everything is the super soul. However, those who are Kavaya, learned scholars, actually know the facts. They do not commit such mistakes. They know that God and the individual soul are one in quality, but that the individual soul falls under the clutches of Maya, whereas the super soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the controller of Maya. Maya is the creation of the Supreme Lord, Maya Shishta. Therefore, the Supreme Lord is the controller of Maya. Although one in quality with the Supreme Lord, the individual soul is under the control of Maya. Mayavadi philosophers cannot distinguish between the controller and the controlled. Okay, so this is the basic philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Uh, we are controlled, and Krishna is the controller. And the controller becomes also controlled by the pure love of the jiva. So that is a higher philosophy. Pure devotional service. What is that? Sri Krishna Akarshini controls the controller. So the infinitely small jiva can attract the infinite Supreme Lord when she has pure devotion. So Krishna has made it like that. Otherwise, in conditional state also we are controlled by the Maya of the Lord. So are we Dvaita or Advaita? What are we? Dvaitas or Advaitas?
Both. Achintya Bheda Bhed Tattva.
We are Dvaita, Advaita. We are, yeah, Dvaitas and we are Advaitas also. We are one in quality. Okay. Anything else on this verse? So Super Soul is telling, Brahmana is telling Vaidarbhi this thing. So next verse. As a person sees the reflection of his body in a mirror to be one with himself and not different, whereas others actually see two bodies. So, in our material condition, in which the living being is affected and yet not affected, there is a difference between God and the living entity. Okay. Being affected by the conditioning of matter, Mayavadi philosophers cannot see the difference between the Supreme Lord and the living entity. Prabhupada is going so many verses, he talks about this Mayavad philosophy because it is very prevalent, it is very popular. So Prabhupada is, that's why he's saying this again and again, that we are different, we are not God. When the sun is reflected in a pot of water, the sun knows that there is no difference between himself and the reflected sun in the water. Those in ignorance, however, perceive that there are small suns reflected in each and every pot. As far as the brilliance is concerned, there is brilliance both in the original sun and in the reflections. But the reflections are small, whereas the original sun is very large. Vaishnava philosophers conclude that the living entity is simply a sample of the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. Qualitatively, God and the living entities are one, but quantitatively, the living entities are small fragments of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord is full, powerful, and opulent. In the previous verse, the Lord says, "My dear friend, you and I are not different." This non difference refers to qualitative oneness, for it was not necessary for the Paramatma, the Supreme Personality, to remind the conditioned soul that he is not one in quantity. The self realized soul never thinks that he and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are one in every respect. Although he and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are one in quality, the living entity is prone to forget his spiritual identity, whereas the Supreme Personality never forgets. That's what in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, also, Krishna says, I remember all the birds. Vedaham samatitani. And he also knows everything that has happened in the past and what is happening in the future. Like, what is that verse? Krishna is saying that Moti bahuni me vyatitani.
जन्मादि तावाचार्जुन भविष्यानि च भूतानि मां तु वेद न कश्चन.
No, that's bahuni me vyatitani, Jarmani Tavacharjuna. Then,
ताम्यहं वेद सर्वाणि न त्वं वेत्त परन्तप.
correct. So, this is a difference between lipta and alipta. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is eternally alipta and uncontaminated by the external energy. The conditioned soul, however, being in contact with the material energy, nature, forgets his real identity. Therefore, when he sees himself in the conditioned state, he identifies himself with the body. Okay. So, Krishna, we forget our position also. We are Tatashta Shakti. We can go in Maya and we can go towards Krishna. Every moment is a choice. For the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, there is no difference between the body and the soul. He is completely soul. He has no material body. Although the super soul, Paramatma, and the individual soul are both within the body, the super soul is devoid of designation, whereas the conditioned soul is designated by its particular type of body. The super soul is called Antarayami and is extensive. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 13.3. Kshetragyam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. O scion of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. The super soul is present in everyone's body, whereas the individual soul is conditioned in one particular type of body. The individual soul cannot understand what is taking place in another's body, but the super soul knows very well what is happening in all bodies. In other words, the super soul is always present in its full spiritual position, whereas the individual soul is prone to forget himself. Nor is the individual soul present everywhere. Generally, in his conditioned state, the individual soul cannot understand his relationship with the super soul. But sometimes, when he is free from all conditional existence, he can see the real difference between the super soul and himself. When the super soul tells the conditioned soul, you and I are one and the same, it is to remind the conditioned soul of his spiritual identity as being qualitatively one. In the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam 328:40, it is said, Yathol Mukhad Visfulingad Dhumad Vapi Swasambhavat Apya Atma Vena Bhiya Matad Yathagni Prathak Ulmukat. Fire has different features. There is flame, the sparks, and the smoke. Although these are one in quality, there is still a difference between the fire, flame, and the spark and the smoke. The living entity becomes conditioned, but the Supreme Personality of God is different because he does not become conditioned at any point. In the next verse, it is stated, Atma Tatha Pritag Drashta Bhagwan Brahma Sangnitaha. Atma is the individual soul as well as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the seer of everything. Although both are spirit, there is always a difference. In the Shruti also it is said, Yatha Agni Shudra Visfulinga Vicharanti. Prabhupada has quoted so many references just to convince. Just as sparks manifest in large fire, similarly the individual souls are present in the big spiritual flame. In Bhagavad Gita 9:4, Lord Krishna says, Matsthani sarva bhutani na chaham tveshva avastitaha. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Although all living beings are resting in him, a small fiery sparks rest on a large flame. Both are differently situated. Similarly, in the Vishnu Puran, it is said, okay, fire is situated in one place, but it distributes heat and light. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of God is distributing his energies in different ways. The living entity is one, but one of these energies is but one of these energies. The energy and energetic are one in one sense, but they are differently situated as energy and the energetic. Similarly, the Satchidananda form confirmed in Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Paramakrishna Satchidananda Vigraha, is different from that of the living entity in both his conditioned and liberated states. So we always maintain our eternal, even in the liberated state, we maintain our individuality. And that verse is there in the second chapter, right? Natvevaham jatu nasam natvam neme janati. Na chaivam na bhavishyama.
सर्वे वयमुत्थापनम्.
So we always maintain our individuality. Only atheists consider the living entity and the personality of God equal in all respects. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore says, Mayavadi Bhashya Shunile Hoila Sarvanash. Hoy Sarvanash. If one follows the instructions of Mayavadi philosophers and believes that the Supreme Personality of God and the individual soul are one, his understanding of real philosophy is forever doomed. Okay, so, but still, mercy is there. Prakashananda Saraswati was converted by Lord Chaitanya to Vaishnavism, and so also Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and so many others like that. Okay, any comment? Basically, it is emphasizing Achintya Bheda Bhed. In this way, both swans live together in the heart, Jiva and Paramatma. When the one swan is instructed by the other, he is situated in his constitutional position. So when we accept our subordinate position to Krishna, then we are in our constitutional position. This means he regains his original Krishna consciousness, which was lost because of his material attraction. Here it is clearly stated, Hanso Hansena Pratibodhitaha. The individual soul and super soul are both compared to swans because they are white or uncontaminated. One swan, however, is superior and is the instructor of the other. When the inferior swan is separated from the other swan, he is attracted to material enjoyment. This is the cause of his fall down. When he hears the instructions of the other swan, he understands his real position and is again revived to his original Krishna consciousness. The Supreme Personality of God Krishna comes down to deliver his devotees and kill the demons. Avatar. He also gives his sublime instructions in the form of Bhagavad Gita. The individual soul has to understand his position by the grace of the Lord and the spiritual master, because the text of Bhagavad Gita cannot be understood simply by academic qualifications. One has to learn Bhagavad Gita from a realized soul. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Updekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn by the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. Thus, one has to select a bona fide spiritual master and become enlightened to his original consciousness. In this way, the individual soul can understand that he is always subordinate to the super soul. As soon as he declines to remain subordinate and tries to become an enjoyer, he begins his material conditioning. When he abandons the spirit of being an individual owner or enjoyer, he becomes situated in his liberated state. The word swastaha, meaning situated in one's original position, is very significant in this verse. When one gives up his unwanted attitude of superiority, he becomes situated in his original position. The word tadvyabhicharena is also significant, for it indicates that when one is separated from God due to disobedience, his real sense is lost. Yes, Krishna says, if you not hear me and you act out of false ego, then you will be lost. Which verse? The Bhagavad Gita. If you don't hear me and you act out of false ego, you will be lost.
Ochita सर्वदुर्गाणि मत्प्रसादतरिष्यति तथा चेत्त्वम् अहङ्कारं न शोष्यसि विनक्ष्यसि.
Yeah. So, if you don't hear Krishna, and act out of false ego, then we'll be lost. So we are lost in the material world, right? We are lost. So many souls are there, right? We are kind of lost in the material, loitering in the material world. Again, of course, Krishna is always there with us, but lost means you don't know where the person is, right? So where we are going in this journey, like they've lost their child, right? They don't know where their child is. Of course, Krishna knows everything, but we are lost in the sense that, yeah, we go into so many species of life, and some person is lost to us forever, right? So we are lost when we don't, in a forest, if you are lost, we don't know the way out. So we are just going round and round in this circle in the forest. We are lost. So we are lost in this material existence. And the spiritual master is the guide who shows us the path out of this material world. So, again, by the grace of Krishna and the Guru, he can be properly situated in his liberated position. These verses are spoken by Srila Narad Muni, and his purpose in speaking them is to revive our consciousness. So, by getting in contact with Prabhupada's books and his devotees, we can revive our original Krishna consciousness. Although the living entity and the super soul are one in quality, the individual soul has to pursue the instruction of the super soul. That is the state of liberation. So just we have to surrender and say, yes, Krishna, what you are saying is right. And if we don't understand something, then we can ask question, uh, as Arjuna was asking. But at the core of our heart, we accept that Krishna is, he knows much, much better than me. He is perfect, he is God, and whatever he says is good for me. Even though I may not be able to understand and I may not like to, accept his instructions because I'm conditioned in a different way. But this is the best thing for me. So that's how the devotees guide, like how to come closer to Krishna. Immediately, one cannot surrender to Krishna. Krishna also says, Bahunam Janmanamante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudev Sarvamiti. So through many, many lifetimes, we go, and then it doesn't have to be like that, but generally person cannot surrender because it is conditioned. So that's but actually they can surrender also. Prabhupada said like that. So we say, I don't know anything, Krishna, or you, the spiritual masters, you guide me. I don't know anything. I'm foolish. So I have inflicted self damage. You know, I don't nate vidu swartha katimi Vishnu. So you tell me what I should do. Of course, it's not like we don't use our intelligence. Prabhupada also said, don't, what he said, don't surrender your intelligence.
Intelligence.
Right? He said something like that. But
Mhm.
try to surrender through intelligence, something like that. Don't surrender your intelligence, but try to surrender with intelligence.
Surrender by your intelligence, but don't surrender your intelligence.
Yeah, surrender by your intelligence, but don't surrender your intelligence. Yeah. Correct. So we have to use our intelligence. But of course, our intelligence was also can be contaminated. So we have to read the Shastra and get the In like, if you want to know gold, then you ought to know the characteristics of gold before you can accept something as gold. So, how will you know the characteristics of gold? Through the books, right? Or some teachers like that who are bona fide, they've written the books. So, Shastra is the real guru. So, in that way, we can know. Okay, so there are so many gurus, right? They are speaking about so many things, but how do we know they are true guru? Then Krishna Vande Jagat Guru. Krishna is the original guru, and is this guru saying what Krishna is saying? Then he's a bona fide guru. Saying is one thing, then is he following? That's another thing. He may not be perfect, but he is following. Okay, he's trying to follow like that. Who is perfect, who is not perfect, we may not know, but if you examine the lifestyle, then he's trying to follow. So in that way, and yeah, so in that there is achar, there is prachar according to what Krishna has said, and there is achar also. So he believes in this fact that surrendering to Krishna is the goal of life, and service to Krishna is the goal of life. He believes in the fact, not some academic knowledge. So like that, he actually has that. Like yesterday, I was hearing this class by Haldar Maharaj. Let me play a little clip. You can hear. Um, this one, where is it? It's purpose of life.
कौन है वो फिल्म हीरो है? देवानंद.
You can hear a little bit since we ended the verse. So he's also coming.
We finished the purport. There are a few lines left.
We finished the purport, right?
No.
That is the state of the world.
Again, by the grace of Guru and Krishna, he can properly.
Okay. By the
Last 4 lines.
okay. When he abandons his spirit of being an individual and owner or enjoyer, he becomes situated in his liberated state. The word swastha, meaning situated in one's original position, is very significant in this verse. When one gives up this unwanted attitude of superiority, he becomes situated in his original position. The word tat vyabhicharina is also significant, for it indicates that one, when is separated from God due to disobedience, his real sense is lost. I thought we did that.
Again, by the grace of
Again, by the
Krishna.
grace of Krishna and Guru, he can be properly situated in his liberated position. Okay. These verses are spoken by Srila Narad Muni, and his purpose in speaking them to them is to revive our consciousness. Although the living entity and super soul are one in quality, the individual soul has to pursue the instruction of the super soul. That is the state of liberation.